Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend and Publish, and welcome to episode 103, What's Your Academic Brand? This year, I've had a lot of time to think about the academic brand of Defend and Publish as a company as I purchased it in the fall of 2021. And, one of the things that I learned about owning a company right away is that a lot of times you inherit someone else's ideas, someone else's model for a business, and some of these other things. And I've noted on the podcast several times that I still have my full-time academic position. I'm a professor of English at the University of Findlay. So I was thinking about brand simultaneously. So I was thinking about it for myself as an academic scholar, mid-career, somebody that's, still got a ways to go in an academic career, but has built up some publications. And then also I've been thinking about the company. And so one of the ways that I started thinking about branding was just in terms of the front-facing material that goes out in public. So I know we've talked in previous podcast episodes about job hunting and presenting, the type of scholar that you want to be out in the discipline. But here I'm thinking about just simple things like, what does the website look like? And so some of these issues and these topics will be focused on in podcast episodes coming up in season 3, which will start for us in 2023 in January. But it is something to think about as we move towards the end of the year to decide, really what are the markers of your academic brand? What does it look like? And so as noted, I was looking at this for both my own personal website and also the company's website. And I focused on the company first, but I want to share a couple of quick pictures just to show you how I figured out what to do with our new look for Defend and Publish and how that might help you as you determine your own academic brand if you have not thought about this. So I'm going to go ahead and share some slides, but for those of you on audio only, you can look at them in you can actually look at those in our show notes, but also I'll describe what's on screen. It's just a couple of quick pictures. So when we're thinking about what's an academic brand, for me, when I was thinking about the company, I knew that I don't know enough how to design the look of a website. I know what I like. I know what colors I like. I might know what images I like. For example, I've always liked the star shape, and I use a starburst a lot of times, kind of a 1950s looking starburst in some of the materials that I use when I teach writing. But beyond that, I didn't really have a big opinion. And I knew that if I was going to redo our company website, I needed to hire someone to help me figure out how to do that. And so the company that I chose to work with was a brand agency in Cleveland called Fizz, F-I-Z-Z. And on screen is what I'm just showing their webpage, but it's F-I-Z-Z. And why I ultimately went with them is I liked the look of their own website and their own branding, but also for me personally, I wanted to be able to go to an advertising agency or a marketing agency in person if I wanted to and meet with people. And I also love supporting my hometown of Cleveland. So I knew I was going to pick a Cleveland agency. And after looking around, I did a consultation call with them and ultimately ended up working with them. And I've learned so much from working with them that I actually have asked them to do a free webinar for us coming up in 2023. So stay tuned for that. But I went with Fizz because I wanted to figure out, what do I even like? And why does it matter? And how's that going to help people understand what the company will be doing going forward? So I'm just showing a couple of quick pictures on the screen, but the next slide shows how they go about finding strategic brand design with Fizz. And I think this is something, this little table that's on their website, I'll make sure I have a link to it in the show notes. I think this is a great way that anybody could go and figure out their own academic brand. You don't need to hire a firm to do this. You could do this for free by doing some of these steps because they have it laid out in a very simple table. And of course, I encourage you to work with Fizz because I've had such a great experience. And when you see the work that they've done, the beautiful work, I think you'll feel the same. But this is something that you could do prior to ever having a budget for advertising or branding or anything like that. Because I think as academics, we don't totally do a lot with marketing ourselves in this kind of a visual way. So what they do and what's on the screen right now kind of talks through how there's basically a funnel of steps. So there's a step with research and discovery where we figure out, And I figured out with the Fizz team together, what kinds of, looks do I like? What kinds of pictures, what kind of customer might be coming or client might be coming to Defend and Publish, all those sorts of things. And that would be the same for a personal academic if we think about who's going to your personal academic website and why are they going there. So for a lot of our clients who were job hunting in the fall, they might be going to just check you out as a scholar and to look at you as a future colleague, especially for somebody in interviews. But for other people, your personal website, if you have one, might come up first, or a Google Scholar profile might come up first, where they're learning more about your research or your scholarship. So I liked this series of steps because it really decided what we're figuring out about a brand. And so a middle phase is figuring out how the brand looks, how it feels, and then what are some actions that might be part of that brand. So what would people be doing when they actually go to your website and you look at it? And so what I ended up doing through my work with them, and this took, several meetings. I can talk about this when we do our free webinar with Fizz. We'll share that process a little bit more together. But what I ultimately ended up with, and for anybody that's listening on audio only, this is one time where visual is probably better, but I'm putting a sneak peek at what our new Defend and Publish design is for our new website. In the next episode 104, I will talk about our move from Defend and Publish to Defend, Publish, and Lead. And just as a hint, that's not a major change for us in terms of what we do. We'll be doing all the things we normally do. We're just adding on an element of writing for academic leadership. So writing for presidents and provosts and folks in senior administrative positions. But I knew I was going to redesign the website anyway. So Defend and Publish has had its current website for quite a while. I was not the one that designed it. And, it served us well for a long time, but it is time for an upgrade and, time for it to be redone. So what I ended up with and what's showing on the screen is just a couple of things that I was able to do with Fizz. This is not by any means all the content they created for me, but I have a new logo for Defend, Publish, and Lead to recognize now we have the leadership element. They made icons for me. So what I'm showing on screen, one is our new podcast icon that will be showing in 2023. Then also another icon of a light bulb. I have all kinds of other little icons that show up all over our website. And then just two of the really cool patterns they made me for back pages and PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff. So, through the process with them, though, I had to figure out what is it that I want this brand to look like and do. And I wanted it to look like writing is enjoyable, for example. It's not for everybody, and it's certainly not, enjoyable all the time. But I wanted to have a look and a feel that at least suggests that it might be enjoyable some of the time. And I do believe it can be. So I wanted to make sure that we echoed that. Also, I really liked, changing up a color scheme just to give it a fresh new design. I liked little icons that are simple, that kind of reflect lots of different things that we do. There were a lot of things that went into this that would be way too much to talk about in a podcast episode. So stay tuned for that free webinar coming up, because you can see how I went through this whole process and figured it out. But I had to look at all kinds of things as part of this process, including looking at, say, competitors' websites. And not that we want to look at other academics as competitors, although in some cases they are for jobs and grants and things like that, much as we might deny that. But one of the things that was really helpful to me is just to see, how can we differentiate ourselves as a company from other companies that are out there? And so part of that process can be a same process that you might use when you think about your own academic website, which is where I'm going next. Now that I've figured out our new Defend, Publish, and Lead website, which will be out in 2023 and become our new website, I'm then going to turn my attention to my own academic website, which you'll be able to see in a second here. Whoops. That is, there we go. I have a picture of it on screen. So for audio listeners, it's just my Christine Tulley WordPress at wordpress.com webpage. And that's just my regular website. I've had it for about 5 years. It's got, all kinds of links on there, like a home, a bio, a CV. It's functional and it is up to date. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's really boring now that I've gone through and done the rebranding through Fizz. So knowing that now I've been through this process once, I'm going to go ahead and do my own website I may go back to phys for that. I wouldn't ever want to say ever, but I also want to think through this myself and see if I can figure out some of these stages on my own. So I know going through that academic branding and really thinking about what do I need this website to do, which is, I think, a question a lot of academics want to ask themselves. What do you want it to have? Because something, for example, like a CV, if you link to your CV and then you never update your CV, which I am very guilty of that, that's a problem, right? So that I have to decide, well, maybe I don't want a CV on there. Maybe I just want links to publications. So I know that that's something that I'm going to probably change because I know I'm not going to keep up with that. So that's going to be something that probably will go. But there are other things like YouTube videos or things that might be more engaging content will be on here. I'll definitely do something with it because what we're looking at on the screen is a plain white background. It's not very exciting looking. And now when I see how a brand can really look to kind of showcase what you do, I am interested in thinking through how that might work out visually. So, this is another way that you might be able to take a look at a personal website and really think through, what do I want it to do? How do I want it to look different? And I know one key thing for me will be the fact that all of my research is in faculty productivity, graduate student writing, academic project management. Well, I shouldn't say all of it, but the majority of my research is all in this area of those things. That's why I bought Defend and Publish. So, what you can't see on here is that a focus of this website. And right now it's just sort of all kinds of things in there. There's teaching and all these other things. But as I move forward, I know that's going to be the lens that this new website will need to have to make it send a singular message. And there's ways that you can do different subsections or pages for different things like teaching or whatever. But I know for me personally, like just looking at this website after going through thinking about an academic brand, I know I'm going to need to focus that a little bit better. So one of the things that I want to close with today then is that as part of my process with Phys, I thought this was really, really smart that they did. And this is not a secret. They have it all on their homepage where you can figure out how to work with them. But they talk about using vision board research. And I've heard a lot about vision boards. I have never made one in my life before I ever did this process with Phys. But essentially, what they did was listen to a lot of things I said, and then they came up with a couple of different vision boards for me to look at that showed all kinds of things like, images I might like, or patterns I might like, or fonts I might like, and all that. And I recently just taught this to a project management class at my university. And this was really helpful for the students to think through their own websites, because before they ever got into a website builder, they got to think through, well, what do I like? What kinds of fonts, have a message that I like? What kinds of images are interesting to me? And so the one that they put on the Phys website is the one that I'm showing on screen right now. But essentially it's showing for some labeling for an Italian soup company. And so there's some pictures that we're helping the client decide what kind of brand they wanted. And so there's like patterns of Italian tile, there's some old-fashioned Italian silverware, some buildings, some fonts, all that kind of stuff is on this vision board. But this would be a really useful exercise, especially as we get towards the end of the academic year, where maybe you're not as, deep into some of your academic writing projects, or maybe you're just looking for a new look for 2023. But I think this is an excellent way to decide what it is you like by doing some brainstorming, getting out a PowerPoint slide and making the different, putting out different fonts and things like that. I had my own students do this as an exercise before they made their final websites for this course that I'm teaching. And I have to say, the websites were much more coherent in terms of what is the purpose of the website. And then how does the font, how does the images and things, or how do the images and, videos and things like that all stay with that same message and keep that message coherent. So hopefully this is a way that you can kind of think through how you want to have an academic website or a brand. It's been a great process that I had to go through. I'm happy to answer any questions off podcast about Phys. And you can email me at Christine@defendandpublish.com if you want to talk through about that process. But you'll actually be able to go to a free webinar with them if you want to hear more about that and do some question and answer. They're going to teach us some things about branding in the spring for 2023. Happy writing this week.